Hello guys, it's Ryan Ho back with another video. Today I want to talk about the best bass headphone or bass heads headphone, which is the Ultrasone Signature X. Now I have actually already reviewed this. However, they actually made a kind of iteration or update to this headphone. They have new pads which change the sound of this. They also come with a Pentacon cable, and they actually fixed the kind of S Logic 3 inside of this because they're kind of pointing in the wrong direction, so we'll talk about that too. But honestly, this headphone is made for people who really like bass. It hits really, really hard, but it's also really detailed, but it is definitely boosted. But I think it's the type of headphone that you want to kind of enjoy like your music, like EDM. You want to be like at the club. You want to be in the front of the stage at a music festival. That's kind of what this sounds like, because it sounds like these are big speakers just blasting you. But there's this like element of like physicality of like the actual like movement of the air and like actually feeling the bass that this does really well. That really drew me to this headphone in the first place. So really this headphone is kind of special in the sense of like none of my headphones actually do this, and that's why I kind of bought this in the first place. Now this headphone was kind of a roller coaster ride. So essentially I was in Japan, I heard the Signature Pulse, what this headphone is based off of. It sounded really, really good, but it was like $550. I was like, that's a lot of money. And then I saw this was kind of made by Drop for $250, so I instantly bought this. And when I first heard this headphone with the stock pads, which are these ones over here, the smaller ones, they didn't sound nearly as good as what I heard the original Pulse. And to be honest, I was a little disappointed. But, you know, it still was decent in the sense of like, you know, it still had the technicalities, it had the same build, but the sound and the tuning wasn't exactly what I wanted. But now with the updated pads, this gets really close to what I remember the Pulse sounding like. And really, I enjoy this tuning a lot. Anyways, as always, please like and subscribe down below. Helps my videos out. I think 96% of you guys are not subscribed, which is kind of insane to me. Like, I know some people have metrics like 50%, but mine's 96% of people who watch me don't subscribe. So please subscribe and that'll help my videos out. Anyways, let's go into more detail. All right, so let's talk about the build. So for the build of this headphone, it's pretty much like a lot of studio headphones. So it's primarily made of plastic right here. It's lightweight, has the kind of leather band up here, but it's a little bit better in the sense that down here, it's kind of vented right here, so it won't get as hot. And I think as it ages over time, it won't kind of peel as much over here as well. So it's an interesting addition to see. On that, it has extensions like this, so nothing too crazy. You can also kind of pivot and swivel, so it has the necessary adjustments you want. And it's like a studio headphone, it can actually be pushed up as well. So you can kind of pack it up a little bit more compact if that's what you're looking for. And the interesting thing though about this one is the pads, right? The new pads are much thicker and bigger. So when you look at these pads, you can see how big they are. And the interesting thing as well is because I don't think these headphones are designed to have these big pads. I noticed that on my head, it becomes a little bit wider. So it pushes down a little bit more up top than I'm used to. And then I also noticed that the pads, when they sit on my head, because they're so like thick, they kind of sit, you know, pushing on the top of my head more, and the bottom kind of hangs out a little bit more. So stuff I kind of noticed about the comfort, but honestly, because these are so plushy and soft, like look how big and soft these are. Overall, I find it pretty comfortable. But the build is, you know, plasticky, but you know, what do you expect from kind of studio headphones? They're kind of just like that. And of course, I kind of like this like Signature X sign down here. Now with the stock pads, I do think it is much more comfortable. It's made to be with these smaller pads, and I find the overall comfort to be better, except for the fact that, you know, these pads are really thin, so your ears do kind of go up against the driver. That's the only thing that it's not as good as the thicker pads. All right, so let's talk about the accessories that it comes with. So obviously you have the packaging right here, which is really nice. This case comes with all the accessories inside. So we actually come with that, you know, Pentacon cable, which is really nice to see. You also have a 3.5 millimeter cable, and then you also have a 3.5 millimeter cable with a microphone. So that's also a nice addition. And then lastly, we have the 1/4-inch adapter. So with 4 cables, it's kind of insane that they give you that many. And then on top of that, you also get the original pads as well as extra pads. So really you're getting a lot of accessories for your money, and all of this and the headphone for $250 does seem pretty nice. All right, so let's talk about sound. So the sound of the new pads is just amazing. Honestly, the biggest improvement is definitely the treble. But the way I would describe the sound is it's pretty much has a neutral mid-range and treble performance, maybe a slightly kind of push forward mid-range, and then it has a super boosted bass, right? That's to be expected, right? Because this is based off of a DJ headphone. But with these new pads, the bass is just like crazy. Like it is a lot of bass, even for me. Like I don't even think even at a concert you hear that much bass. It's like almost insane amount of bass. Honestly, it's definitely boosted. So if you like that, you're definitely gonna get that here. Now the bass still sounds relatively clean for how much quantity it is. And the type of hits that you get on this thing is just insane. Like this thing actually pounds your eardrums with physicality. Like you feel the air, you feel the movement of all the notes being played, even the string instruments being played. Like it's a very kind of physical type of driver. So I really like that type of like impact. It just makes the music sound really lifelike in my opinion. And the other aspect about it is that like it's still relatively controlled for what you get. Like you're getting higher quality bass than something like an XM5 from Sony, or like the Bose QC35, or I guess the Bose 700 nowadays. So it definitely has better quality and more detail than those basses, but I actually would even say that this has more bass than those normal consumer headphones, which is kind of hilarious in that sense, right? Now, I feel like the mid-range on this headphone is something that I never really heard that much from most of my headphones. Like the mid-range on this headphone sounds really, really nice, really good. I mean, people would say like it sounds like rich, probably is like what the audiophiles would say. And that's kind of how I feel about the mid-range. Like it's definitely something that I feel like a lot of my headphones lack. The kind of the treble is the most interesting part about this, because essentially the treble on this one was pretty much lacking. I felt like I was just constantly starved for treble, versus this one, you get a lot of that, which was just surprising to me how it can sound so different with these new pads. But I would say you're definitely getting that like, you know, upper treble, even the lower treble in there. It sounds really good. Obviously, I think it could use a tiny bit more to make the strings instrument sound a little bit snappier in my opinion, but I'm really nitpicking. Like you get much better treble than this one, and it's much, you know, it's more than adequate in my opinion. However, there's an interesting part of the tuning that I've also haven't heard in many headphones, but they kind of describe it too in their kind of tuning process of this. But essentially when it comes to the upper mid-range, where, you know, people say like voices tend to sound shouty a lot of times, it kind of has a slight, very narrow cut in that region. And it's really interesting because like when I listen to it, it's like I feel like I'm getting all the treble, but it never sounds shouty. And that one specific area is just cut out a little bit, and it sounds a little bit wider, a little bit further in that area. It never gets like fatiguing. I really appreciate that type of tuning, and it's not, you know, something that you commonly see. And I think it's honestly expertly done, and it's very tasteful. I would say the biggest downside of this kind of new pad is definitely just the boost in bass. Even I'm gonna admit that like it's more bass than even I would like, which is almost insane to say. Like I don't think I've said that about any headphone. I do like the kind of bass presentation of this one a little bit more like neutral, not neutral, but like it's more balanced in the boost, versus I feel like this one has just a gigantic bass boost in like the mid bass that just like pounds your eardrum. And it's the thing you'll hear the most if your music has a lot of that type of bass. But honestly, the new pads are way better than these. These had, you know, probably a better bass profile. The mid-range was not as good. It's a little bit more laid back in my opinion. And the treble was definitely way more laid back. They're not even close, honestly, in the sense of tuning. The thicker pads are just in a different league. The rest of the frequencies sound really, really clean and clear. And honestly, the detail retrieval of this headphone is honestly really good as well. The amount of kind of snappiness that you get from this driver, as well as the physicality of the driver, it's really impressive. Because like, yeah, there's like a lot of bass and you have to fight with that, but it still manages to sound really clean with all the notes and sounds quite speedy in my opinion. Now I do think the bigger brother of this headphones sounds speedier, the kind of the master that I also heard in Japan. However, these are actually really kind of detailed drivers, especially for its price. I think people will be quite surprised at what they're capable of. But yeah, honestly, if you listen to songs like Yeji, Rain Girl, like you listen to that song on this headphone, you'll definitely hear all the bass in the world. But when you listen to more vocal based tracks by like, Gracie Abrams and stuff like that, it sounds really good for both male and female vocals. They sound excellent. Like I think you're not going to be disappointed at all. Honestly, that part of the tuning just nails it. And I can definitely see kind of its studio heritage from just listening to that and seeing how well tuned that is. Of course, like I said, it is a DJ headphone, so you're getting that juicy bass. So let's talk about soundstage and imaging on this headphone. So soundstage imaging is a very interesting thing because I, test the soundstage of this in a lot of music, and it does have this, the S Logic trickery, which it kind of makes it sound like it coming around your ear behind you, and it makes it sound kind of wider than it is. So I think it actually does work pretty well. But I did notice something when I was playing games and testing imaging, right? So the directionality of where it sounds. And the most interesting thing is that because it's very left and right, they're not really angle drivers or anything, things do sound like they're very left and right. But what I noticed is when I was playing games, things that sounded even left in front of me actually had a tendency of sounding behind me right here. Like I got confused whether it was up in front or behind me. And maybe just because the S Logic was designed to make sounds wrap around your ear and have the timing difference, that it kind of confused me a little bit. So for the imaging of like preciseness and accurateness, I wouldn't say it does that really well, but in the sense of like tricking your brain into thinking it has a bigger sound stage, I definitely think it does that. But yeah, I'm not gonna recommend this for gaming because first of all, the bass is really loud. When you shoot a gun, it's just like you can't hear anything anyways. But yeah, the imaging is simply okay. Not, it's probably less accurate than okay, honestly. Also, when it came to like the verticality of like the imaging as well, like above and below, I also found that a little bit hard to distinct too on this headphone. So definitely imaging is a little bit of a mixed bag in my opinion. So in conclusion, do I recommend the Ultrasone Signature X? I definitely do. I think this headphone is special in the sense of like it just gives you that fun feeling in the headphone. A lot of headphones that I review are probably more closer to balance, but this one really is something different. And that's what kind of attracted me to it in the first place, is because it's special in its kind of performance of bass and being more energetic in general. So if you're looking for that type of sound, I definitely recommend this headphone. But it is a lot of bass, so it's not for the faint of heart. Anyways, if you guys like this video, please like and subscribe down below. Helps my videos out. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.